All right, welcome to Big Book Compendium, and my name is Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. Um, so when I was a little kid, I looked at superheroes as I thought that's what a hero was. Um, Today, I define a hero differently. A hero is a person who overcomes their defeats and their obstacles and discovers a better person. But in turn, they selflessly spend the rest of their lives helping others also find that better person. But even more importantly, they demonstrate unconditional love, courage, enthusiasm, amazing grace, and they strive to accomplish their goals. And sometimes that person will start a revolution. My hero, personal hero, is Bill Wilson. And people have asked me over the years why my hero is Bill Wilson. You know, um, it's very simple. He wrote this book, and this book helped save my life. It gave me something I truly never thought I'd have, and that's the ability to help others, but overcome the obsession to drink, all sorts of things, but awaken to just a new life. Plus, I've studied Bill really closely. I've read books about him. Um, I've done this process, and I just feel, connected to this individual. Um, Plus, he's just a fascinating person. So we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Bill. So I'm going to read. This is from 1999 Life magazine, 100 greatest icons of the 20th century. Here's what they said, and it's pretty interesting. His personal popularity was enormous. People would line up for hours just to touch his sleeve. Many treated him as a messiah or a rock star. He could not walk down the street without being accosted. People strained to listen to anything he might say, even in casual conversation. Often, most often, people just wanted to meet him and thank him for what he had done. He never felt worthy of his praise and only having a low opinion of himself. Never held himself as a model. He was a central role in the development of a radical movement, a program of spiritual growth, a revolution that would save millions of lives that for thousands of years could never be saved. Alex Haley called him the greatest social architect of our 20th century. The man I'm speaking of is Bill Wilson, a man whose alcoholism had destroyed his health, his career, his family, and the lives of others. Then, while incarcerated for the fourth time in uh, Manhattan's Towns Hospital in 1934, Wilson had a spiritual experience that changed his life and would change the life and the founding of the revolutionary 12-step program, Alcoholics Anonymous, the successful remedy for alcoholism, a movement that would change his life and the lives of others. Wilson believed the key to sobriety was a change of heart. The 12 steps included admission of powerlessness, to surrender to personal God, moral inventory, restitution for harm done, and a call to service. Bill insisted again and again that he was just an ordinary man, refusing to take any money for counseling and leadership. Despite outside organizations wanting to commend him for his outstanding social work, he always rejected any claim to fame. He turned down many honors, including a degree at Yale and Harvard. He declined this magazine's offer to put him on the cover, even when his back turned. His face was never seen by the general public until his obituary appeared in the newspaper January 25th, 1971, the day of his death. All the way to the end, he clung to the principles he followed. Bill is a true hero. I hope others are grateful for what he created, all because of his own dark, bitter experience and this discovering through a personal conversion experience, a system of behavior pulled together with various threads of psychology, theology, and spirituality, with a series of action into the work-table life-saving system for alcoholics who want to stop drinking. Today, Alcoholics Anonymous has over 2 million active members worldwide, over 100,000 registered groups. Remember, this is 2000. Hospitals, conference rooms, and school places. Today, the American Medical Association has refined alcoholism as a chronic illness, not a failure of willpower. So I'm going to put up a slide of step one, because we're on step one, technically. So everyone can see that, right? It says step one says we admitted we're powerless over alcohol, our lives have become unmanageable. And last week we talked about the medical hopelessness of alcoholism, that we are powerless over alcohol because of that allergy. I mentioned that before. Step one is separated by what's called an M dash, a punctuation mark that is used instead of a comma or replace a word to indicate, to indicate change with a strong emphasis on a point. With Bill's story tonight, we're going to look at that unmanageability, which is the inability to control or manage and accomplish things without great difficulty. And I mean, for us, there's consequences. There's consequences. There's DUIs. There's breakups. There's car accidents. There's all sorts of nice things, rehabs. But there's also the insanity of the first drink. We'll see a lot of that tonight. The insanity of not being able to stop drinking, and you'll see also in Wilson the type of unmanageability where he's restless, irritable, discontent, and and the big book calls that type of unmanageability, spiritual malady, spiritual sickness, whatever you want to call it. The thing about it is, and I mentioned this before, if we continue to experience unmanageability, eventually our mind will seek out the ease and comfort that comes at once by taking a few drinks. And it's overcome by steps 4 through 9 and living in 10, 11, 12. So last week we read it. Silkworth stated, these allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. And once having found that they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them, and they become astonishingly difficult to solve. We're going to see how Bill Wilson solved life. And we're going to, see how he managed his life, he ran his life, he controlled his life, or it controlled him. So step one, so I'm going to close this up. So when I first read Bill's story, I mean, there's honest thought came to mind is, what am I going to have a common with a guy that's born in 1895 or died when I was 2 years old? And, I was told, cross out Bill's story and write your name in there, because this is a check your experience chapter. It's, to help us do that, I'm going to reference his downward spiral quite often. I'm going to use those moments, and I'm going to say doom curve 1, doom curve 2, doom curve 3. I'm going to point them out. And doom means, I mentioned this before, it means to be condemned to ruin, sometimes death. It's the inevitable destruction of something, but so a curve is a continuous bending line that has no straight parts, a point where directions change. So a doom curve is a disastrous change in direction leading to a downward spiral, perhaps death. There's 30 of these doom curves I'm going to mention. So again, check your experience. So it says, one second. War fever ran high in the New England town to which we knew young officers from Plattsburgh were assigned. This is 1918. We were flattered when the first citizens took to their homes, making us feel heroic. Here was love, applause, war, moments of sublime with intervals hilarious. I was a part of life at last. In the mist, I discovered liquor. It says, how did Bill feel before he discovered alcohol. He wasn't part of life, you know? And, I mean, I remember my first drink, but it's not when I discovered alcohol. My first drink was just drinking a bunch of stuff at my parents' house when I was 12 and, grenadine and hard alcohol mixed together. But the thing about it was when I discovered it, it was a totally different story. I was 16 years old. I drank a few times and was doing other stuff. I walked into a big party one night and someone handed me a bottle of White Lightning. It's about 180 proof. And I took a big swig and I didn't gag. Instead, the whole complexion of the room just changed and lit up. It was like it lit up. It's like, oh, when these lights come on, you know, but I could look the world in the eye. My fears fell from me. I had peace of mind. I knew freedom and happiness. Self-pity disappeared. I didn't regret the past. And so alcohol was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, you know, and, you know, that's just how I felt when I discovered do you remember when you discovered it, when you truly discovered it? Back to the book. I forgot the strong warnings and the prejudices of my people concerning drink. And in time, we sailed over there. I was very lonely and again turned to alcohol. We landed in England and I visited Winchester Cathedral. So he got to England, you know, so he visited Winchester Cathedral and he prayed and had an experience. And we will be discussing this experience will unravel to us and to him and us as we go through this. And it gets deeper. He says, much moves, I wandered outside and my attention was caught by an old dogger drill on a tombstone. I'm going to show you the actual one of that. And I'm going to read the one in the big book first and read the one that's on there. It's slightly different. It says, here lies a Hampshire grenadier who caught his death drinking cold small beer. A good soldier is never forgot, whether he dies by musket or by pot. So this is the original one. And I'm going to read you what it says on this one. It says, here sleeps in peace a Hampshire grenadier who caught his death drinking cold small beer. Soldiers be wise from his untimely fall. And when we're not, and when we're hot, drinking strong or none at all. And honest soldiers never forgot, whether he drinks by musket or by pot. It's a little more poetic than the one we have in there, but that's the whole tombstone there. And it's AA members were kind enough to fix it up and restore it over the years. And a lot of the AA landmarks have been restored, which is really cool. So he says on their ominous warning, which I failed to heed. You know what ominous warning is? Is a warning from somebody, but it's ominous, and, I mean, ominous is a big word. I mean, it's a threatening warning, and so I remember when I was like 19 years old, and I would go to this older guy's house to buy, stuff. And they were like fully tattooed out and in their, mid 30s, or at least they looked that way. And I never forget, one of them just grabbed me by the arm. He's a real skinny guy. And he said, hey, this stuff will tear you down. And that was the ominous warning I failed to heed. I didn't even, it just went out, one ear and out the other. It says, 22 and a veteran of foreign wars. I went home at last. I fancied myself a leader, for not the men of my battery given me special appreciation. My talent for leadership, I imagine, would place me at the head of vast enterprises, which I would imagine with utmost assurance. Again, to check your experience. What was your dream when you were 22? I mean, mine was I wanted to follow the Grateful Dead all around the world and sell drugs and make enough money to move to Hawaii and somewhere in paradise. And that didn't work out. It says, I took a night law course. So Bill is a super intelligent guy. He can pretty much be successful at anything he touches. And we're going to see that. So I took a night law course and obtained employment as an investor for a sturdy company. The drive for success was on. I proved to the world I was important. My work would take me about Wall Street, and little by little I became interested in the market. Many people lost money, but some became very rich. Why not I? I studied economics and business as well as law. So he's studying tons of different stuff. Potential alcoholic I was and nearly failed my law course. So here's a guy that can pass his law course drunk. Talent. At one of the finals, I was too drunk to think or write. Some people take years to pass the bar, and Bill passed it in once, and it was actually, some people said, even tougher then. Um, though my drinking was not yet continuous, it disturbed my wife. We had long talks when I would still her forbiddings by telling her that men of genius conceived their best project when drunk, that the most majestic uh, constructions of philosophical thought was so derived. Very poetic there. By the time I completed the course, I knew law was not for me. So he passed the course, but it's not for me. The investing maelstrom of Wall Street had me in its grip. Wall Street was on fire at this time. It was somewhat new, but the passion and how much it was making people rich was going crazy. Business and financial leaders were my heroes. Out of the alloy of drink and speculation, I commenced to forge the weapon that would one day turn in flight like a boomerang and all but cut me to ribbons. So what's interesting about this is when Bill was 10 years old, so I'm going to take it because he mentioned the boomerang, 10 years old, he had this, he was feeling like inadequate, like depressed, because he was this kind of really tall, nerdy looking guy, a kid, and other kids pushed him around, and his father had abandoned the family. His mother left him to the care of his grandparents, and his grandfather was this gritty old tough guy, and taught Bill a lot. He really reflected his life on Bill well. And one day his grandfather showed him a book about Australia, and told him that the Aborigine people would make and throw boomerangs. And this is what Bill wrote. This is actual from one of his books. I forget where it's from, but here's my chance. I thought I will be the first man in America to make and throw a boomerang. He's 10 years old. Set on fire by this goal, he made a boomerang and spent 6 months learning how to throw it. But mine was a power to drive that kept me 6 months till I made the boomerang swing around the churchyard in front of the house and almost hit my grandfather in the head when it came back. Emotionally, I had began the fascination of another sort of boomerang that would almost kill me later on. So that story really shows Bill's determination to get things done. And from what I've read, heard, many people at the time, boomerangs were not heard of. And not saying he's the first person in the United States that had one, but he probably wasn't far off. So he's got some hidden talents and a little bit of history in there. Living modestly, my wife and I saved $1,000, which is a lot of money back then. It went to certain securities, and then cheap and rather unpopular. I rightly imagined that they would someday have a great rise. I failed to persuade my broker friends to send me out looking for, over factories and managements, but my wife and I decided to go anyway. So I'll keep reading. I had developed a theory that most people lost money in stocks due ignorance of markets. I discovered many more reasons later on. So Bill created something still used today. He created this, it's called fundamental analysis. And what fundamental analysis is let's just say Kevin has a new business and I want to invest in his business in stock. I'm going to go out and spend some time and check out his business. They have employees they hire to do that still to this day. And Bill was the guy that pretty much created that. Pretty interesting. It says, now it's him. It says, we gave up our positions and off reward in a motorcycle, the sidecar stuff with a tent, blankets, and a change of clothes, 3 volumes of a financial reference service. I'm going to put another slide, and we'll see Bill roaring off. Or this is Bill, rode a Harley. This is a Harley Davidson Model J with a factory sidecar and 61 cubic inch twin. It has this, the 3-speed hand shift transmission. It was the first Harley Davidson to feature electric package, headlight, tail light, and all that. And it retailed for $400, and it was probably the most expensive bike at the time. And the sidecars, there's the lowest in there. The sidecar's $110, and there's another picture of them. That's a picture of them roaring off. I always fascinated with Bill. So here's this couple who's making decent money, saving up enough money, and they decide to roar off to the big city. Here's what their friends thought. Our friends thought a lunacy commission should be appointed. Perhaps they were right. I had some success at speculation, so we had a little money, but we once worked on a farm for a month to avoid drawing on our small capital. That was the last honest manual labor on my part for many a day. We covered the whole Western United States in a year, and at the end of it, my reports to Wall Street procured me in a position there, and the use of the large expense account. So what he's saying there is he did fundamental analysis himself and then just gave them to people just to get himself over in Wall Street. Very, very interesting. He said the exercise of an option brought in more money, leaving us with a profit of several $1,000s for that year. For the next few years, fortune threw my way and applause my way. I had arrived. My judgment and ideas were followed by many of the tunes of paper millions. The great boom of the late 20s was seething and swelling. Drink had taken an important and exhilarating part of my life. There was loud talk at the jazz places. There's lots of drugs and alcohol at the jazz places too. This is prohibition. They were like a crack house almost, like back in those days. Everyone spent in thousands and shattered in millions. Scoffers could scoff and be damned. I had a host of Fairweather friends. Remember those Fairweather friends? So here's the first doom curve. This is doom curve number 1 coming up. This is doom curve number 1. My drinking assumed more serious proportions, continuing all day and every night. Remember when that happened to you? Here's doom curve number 2. The reminiscences of my friends turned me in a row, and I became a lone wolf. Again, when I say doom curve, it's you to check your experience, and it's showing that where Bill is starting to curve downwards. There were many unhappy scenes in our strenuous apartment. There had been no infidelity, for loyalty to my wife helped me at times, by extreme drunkenness kept me out of those scrapes. In 1929, so Bill's going to find other ways to drink, and whatever ways he can drink. In 1929, I contracted golf fever. We went at once to the country, my wife to applaud, while I started to overtake Walter Hagen. He's the best golfer at that time. Liquor caught up to me much faster than I came behind Walter. So here we go again with another dream. What kind of dream, did you want to accomplish? What I'm talking about is an ideal. So an ideal is a principle, and it's a value that's already instilled within us. And when we pursue it, it leads to growth. Perhaps it's something, we could do with our life, a perfect job, maybe be a doctor, whatever. What caught you before, what is that ideal? What took you out of it? What happened? What got in the way of it? Do you still have that ideal? Are you stuck, doing something maybe you don't want to do? The problem with life is we start settling on things, reaching our goals and experience our dreams. Our ideals can be more than thoughts. It can be reality. Pursue them. And the reason I bring up ideals is because they're all through this book. And part of the removal of resentments and fears is you find your ideals within. Here's doom curve number 3. It's a very short one. I began to be jittery in the morning. Remember that. It says golf permitted drinking every day and every night. I was fun to cart him around the exclusive course, which had inspired me as a lad. So he liked to show off. I acquired the impeccable coat of a tan one sees upon the well-to-do. So he likes fitting in and looking like he's something. The local banker watched me roll fat checks in and out of the till with amused skepticism. So he's making lots of money in the stock market. A lot of people were. It's roaring high, and this happened. Abruptly, in October 1929, all hell broke loose on the New York Stock Exchange. After one of those days of inferno, I wobbled from a hotel bar to a brokerage office. It was 8 o'clock. 5 hours after the market had closed. The ticker still clattered. I stared at an inch of tape, which bore the description XYZ 32 had been 52 that morning, so it dropped 20%. So what that means is, you know, the stock had dropped $20 a share. A stock, you know, of shares, you know, a block of shares is $1,000, and that's what the big wheelers had in those was blocks. So if you had a block, you had 20,000. You lost 20,000 that day. You know, Bill had interest in Bennington Corn Company and Pennick and Ford's Foods, and he nearly had controlling interest of Bennington Corn Company because he had so much. He kept buying into it, and he had multiple blocks, and he owed he owed to people. And so what he did what's called money margin leverage, meaning he got friends and family like his parents to invest. It would be like me taking Jason and saying, hey, you know, give me $50, and when this goes forward, I'm going to give you 500. And that's what Bill's selling point was. But he has family and friends investing in the blocks, and you know, it crashed. Everything crashed. He says, I was finished and so were my friends. So his friends began, you know, being those who got to invest. He's saying my friends, the ones who had the money margin. People reported. So here's the thing is, important thing is, does an alcoholic, let's see the alcoholic difference between an alcoholic and a normal person when the stock market crashes. The people reported men jumping in death from towers of high finance. That disgusted me. I would not jump. I went back to the bar. So that's what alcoholic does. My friends, that's his investors, had dropped several million since 10 o'clock. So what? Tomorrow was another day. You know, that should be on an alcoholic's tombstone. Tomorrow's another day. I'll get it done later. You know, as I drank, the old fierce determination to win came back. So Bill lost millions, so did his friends, and instead of killing himself, he's back at the bar, you know, getting the determination and thinking about how he can make more millions. Next morning, I telephoned a friend in Montreal. He had plenty of money left and thought I better go to Canada. By the following spring, we were living in our accustomed style. I felt like Napoleon returning from Elba. No Saint Helena for me, but drinking caught up to me again, and my generous friends had to let me go. This time we stayed broke. So when he went to Montreal, what had happened was he got these people up there he was sending them stock, the fundamental his analysis, and they got him. They said, here's one, let's do it. And so they all bought into it, and he went up there, and basically what happened was, I think it was, they were sitting in a room and celebrating, and Bill was dry at the time, just dry, and someone passed Applejack his way, and a thought came to his mind, obsession came to his mind, and said, I've never tried this before. And he tried it, and he woke up the next day with a letter telling him to get lost and his bags packed. So here's how they wound out after that. We went to live with my wife's parents. That sounds familiar. I found a job, then lost the result with a brawl with a taxi cab driver. Here's doom curve number 4. Mercifully, no one could guess that I would have no real employment for 5 years or hardly draw a sober breath. So do you remember when that happened to you? My wife began working in an apartment store, coming home exhausted to find me drunk. I became an unwelcome hanger-on at brokerage places. Here's doom curve number 5, and this is a big one. Liquor ceased to become a luxury, it became a necessity. Do you remember when that happened to you? When it went to, like, it was this weekend warrior thing into drinking every day, every morning, luxury necessity. Bathtub gin, 2 bottles a day and often free, got to be routine. One thing I want to mention about bathtub gin, it was like 160 proof, and all the alcohol in the prohibition was over 100 proof or more. There was no 80 proof stuff that came down. That's watered down alcohol that came out after prohibition to make money. Sometimes a small deal would net a few $100, and I would pay my bills at the bars and delicatessens. So let me explain the bars and delicatessens. We know what a bar is, right? But they were actually in the delicatessen. And what that means is you would go into the delicatessen, and as you would go to the back, you would pass the guy, go to the back of the place, and it would look like a walk-in freezer. You open it up, and it was a long hallway. And it'd be around the whole block, let's say in New York, and it would be a long hallway that would wind up the building at the corner, opposite where you were. And inside there was gambling, alcohol, prostitution, everything like there's drugs. So that's what the delicatessens were. That's how you made it inside those places. And you had to throw some money to get into those places. So when he says he paid the delicatessens, he's paying them off as monthly dues. The doom curves are going to start flying pretty fast now. Doom curve number 6. This went on endlessly, and I began to awaken very early, shaking violently. Went from jittery in the morning, now I'm shaking violently. Doom curve 7. A tumbler full of gin, followed by half a dozen bottles of beer, will be required if I were to eat any breakfast. Doom curve number 8. Nevertheless, I still thought I could control the situation, and there were periods of sobriety which renewed my wife's hope. That's 4 doom curves in that paragraph, and a lot of them. I mean, I'll read them back again real quick without saying what they were. Just this went on endlessly, and I began to shake violently in the morning. A tumbler full of gin, followed by half a dozen bottles, would be required for eating breakfast. Nevertheless, I still thought I controlled the situation, and there were periods which renewed my wife's hope. So still thinks he can control it. Gradually, things got worse, even worse. Let's see. The house was taken away by the mortgage holder. My mother-in-law died. My wife and father-in-law became ill. Not all those results are drinking, but don't forget, in between drinks, he's restless, irritable, and discontent. That's, this stuff he's talking about, losing, the mortgage holder, losing your house, someone dying, your wife and father, became ill, father-in-law became ill. That's stuff that happens to us sober, but we don't handle it the same way as we do when we're lost. We handle this stuff through the steps now. Then I got a promising business opportunity. Stocks are at a low point at 32, and I had somehow formed a group to buy, and I was to share generously in the profits, and one of his prestigious vendor, and the chance vanished. He did it again. Doom curve number 9. I woke up. This had to be stopped. I saw I could not take as much as one drink. I was through forever. Before then, I had written lots of sweet promises, but my wife happily observed that this time I meant business, and so I did. So the program he's going to do here is don't take the first drink. Like he says, I was through forever. What's interesting is every promise he made to Lois, he put in the family Bible. Let's see how well he did with the drink, just, don't drink no matter what program. Doom curve number 10. Shortly afterward, I came home drunk. I was doom curve number 10. There had been no fight. So much for that program. Don't take the first drink. And this is what a lot of us go through when we do the don't take the first drink program, or just go back to using again. Where had been my resolve? I simply did not know. Wow, I did not know. How many have sat back? Is there anything in life that knocked you on the ground and you couldn't figure out why it did? I simply did not know. Where had been my resolve? I didn't know. It hadn't even come to mind. That's the way the obsession works. That's the strange mental blank spot this book talks about. It doesn't come to mind. There comes a time, like, you might have it right next to you, stashed away, and you're not quite there yet to do it. And then you do. It's just, you don't even know why it's happening. That's the obsession. Doom curve 11. Someone had pushed a drink my way, and I had taken it. Was I crazy? That's a good question. I began to wonder, for an appalling lack of perspective seemed near being just that. Renewing my resolve, I tried again. Some time had passed, and confidence was replaced by cocksureness. I could laugh at the gin mills. Now I had what it takes. One day I would walk into a cafe to telephone. So you just walk into a place to telephone, Now life is really going to unravel and become unmanageable. This is like the really deep, unmanageable doom curves. Doom curve 12. In no time, I was beating on the bar, asking myself what had happened. Doom curve 13. As the whiskey rose to my head, I told myself I would manage better next time, but I might as well get good and drunk, and so I did. Remember that? I mean, no matter what you put in your body, and you're dry, and you had the allergy obsession in the past, you can feel it slowly polluting your body again, and you just kind of say whatever and just move and go and start going into it. Doom curve 14. The remorse and horror of hopelessness of the next morning are unforgettable. The courage to do battle was not there. Doom curve 15. My brain raced uncontrollably, and there was terrible sense of impending calamity. Doom curve 16. I hardly dare cross the street, lest I collapse and be run down by an early morning truck, for it was scarcely daylight. Doom curve 17. An all-night place supplied me with a half a dozen glasses of ale. My withering nerves were still at last. A morning paper told me the market had gone to hell again. Well, so had I. The market would recover, but I wouldn't. That was hard. That was a hard thought. Doom curve 18. Should I kill myself? No, not now. Then a mental fog settled down. Gin would fix that. So 2 bottles in oblivion. I like how he says, should I kill myself? No, not now. I'm going to drink. The mind and body are marvelous mechanisms, for mine endured this agony 2 more years. Doom curve 19. Sometimes I stole from my wife's slender purse when the morning terror and madness were on me. Doom curve 20. Again, I swayed dizzily before the open window or the medicine cabinet where there was poison, cursing myself a weakling. There was flights from city to city and back, and my wife and I sought escape. Doom curve 21. And then came the night when the physical and mental torture was so hellish, I feared I would burst through my window, sash and all. Somehow I managed to drag my mattress to a low floor, at least I suddenly leaped. Doom curve 22. This is a good one. A doctor came with a heavy sedative, right? Next day, found me drinking both gin and sedative. Of course he did. Of course. And there's drugs in this story. Wow. This combination soon landed me on the rocks. Doom curve 23. People feared for my sanity. So did I. Doom curve 24. I could eat little or nothing, and I was 40 pounds underweight. I was 140 pounds when I got sober. I was skin and bones. I could hide behind a tree. small tree. Doom curve 25. This is a very important. My brother-in-law is a physician, and through his kindness, that that of my mother, I was placed in a nationally known hospital for the mental and physical rehabilitation of alcoholics. So this is a huge point here in A history, because this is where he went to Towns Hospital, and upon the so-called belladonna treatment, that's they put a bunch of stuff in his body. My brain cleared. Hydrotherapy and mild exercise helped much. That's what they did to the guys there. Best of all, I met a kind doctor, that's William Duncan Silkworth, who explained that though certainly selfish and foolish, I've been seriously ill bodily and mentally. So Silkworth explained the allergy obsession to him, and Bill took it in because he was ready to take it in at the time because he couldn't figure this out. But having that knowledge, he got the diagnosis. Let's see what he did with it. It relieved me to somewhat learn that in the alcoholics, the will is amazingly weakened when it comes to combating liquor. Though it often remains strong in other respects, my incredible behavior in the face of desperate desire to stop was explained. He's got the information. Understanding myself now, I feared for high hope. For 4 months, the goose hung high. So he got 4 months clean. I went to town regularly and even made a little money. Surely this was the answer, self-knowledge. So he already did the don't take the first drink program. Now he's doing the self-knowledge program. And self-knowledge is information that we draw upon when finding an answer or remembering something we learned, And so he already tried that one program. Let's see how he does in the self-knowledge program, the knowing, Doom curve 26. But it was not. For the frightful day came when I drank once more. Didn't work so well with him. The curve of my declining moral and bodily health fell off like a ski jump. There's that curve there. After a time, I returned to the hospital. That's Towns again. This was the finish, the curtain, it seemed to me. Doom curve 27. My weary and despairing wife was informed that it would all end with heart failures during DTs, during tremens, or I would develop wet brain, perhaps within a year. She would soon have to give me over to the undertaker of the asylum. So wet brain is permanent damage that is caused by alcohol. It gives you deep confusion, loss of mental ability, muscle coordination. You can go blind, memory loss, a restless leg syndrome, bad leg tremors, double vision, and death. It's very compared to like ALS. So it's not something good to have. And it cannot be reversed. Meaning, if you got wet brain, you want to go to AA, it might, you might be happy there, but it's not going to reverse your wet brain. They did not need to tell me. I knew and almost welcomed the idea of death. It was a devastating blow to my pride. We've all been there. I, who had thought so well of myself and my abilities, of my capacity to surmount obstacles, was cornered at last. Now I was to plunge into the dark, joining this endless progression of sorts who had gone on before. I thought of my poor wife. There had been much happiness after all. What would I not give to make amends? But that was over now. So he is exactly where he's supposed to be, the bottom of the pit. The bottom of the pit. And this explains it perfectly. Doom curve 28. No words, and we've all been here. No words can tell the loneliness and despair I found in the bitter morals of self-pity. Quicksand stretched all around me in all directions. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master. He finally admitted defeat. In a sense, you could say he took the first step. And it doesn't take you. I mean, you don't take the first step, it takes you. And that's what it's about. Trembling, I stepped from the hospital, a broken man. Fear sobered me up for a bit. Doom curve 29. So here's the fear program he tried. Then came the insidious insanity of the first drink on Armistice Day 1934. Was off again. So what happened on Armistice Day 34 was rather interesting. Bill, when he was sober, he would always golf. That was his outlet. And so he hopped on a bus one day, and the bus got hit by another bus, and they were all put up into a little bar for lunch. So they got sandwiches and stuff while the bus was, another bus came. And the guy goes, "Can I buy you a drink, man?" Some guy next to him. And Bill explained to this guy Silkworth's theory of the allergy obsession. And that guy is sitting there going, "Wow, holy crap." And then a minute later, some guy comes by and goes, "Drinks?" And Bill takes it and drinks it. And the guy goes, "Wait a minute. After what you just told me, you must be crazy." And Bill goes, "Hell yeah." And he's off and roaring again. Doom Curve 30. Everyone became resigned to the certainty that I would have to be shut up somewhere, or would stumble along to a miserable end. How dark it is before the dawn. Out of brokenness is the opportunity to live again. That's the beautiful thing. In reality, this was the beginning of my last debauch. I was soon to be catapulted in what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I was to know happiness and peace and usefulness in a way of life that is indescribably wonderful as time passes. What is this fourth dimension thing? What is he talking about? So we live in this three-dimensional world. Height, measurement, beginning to end, width is side to side, depth top to bottom. This three-dimensional world is observed through five senses, hearing, taste, touch, smell, sight. And there's a dimension of existence that's beyond the third and fourth dimension. A sixth sense, fourth dimension of existence, or sixth sense, called God consciousness. And this consciousness is a deep sense of awareness. So God consciousness is awareness of higher self, or God. So we can transcend, this physical existence and experience, this divinity within that this book talks about. So consciousness is it's like a pre-existing spiritual presence that's already within us, just waiting to be awakened. It's the only part of us that's capable of exceeding these animal instincts which have directed us. And now this consciousness, you can't have two chords, so which one am I going to have? But it's conscious, it's about knowing and growing and developing within your own being and discovering, all life's qualities, like I meant, love and harmony and peace, bliss, and receiving strength and guidance. And notice it said he was catapulted. Later in the book, he talks about being launched into a fourth dimension of existence, rocketed in other parts, and rocket travels very fast. And to be rocketed into that dimension requires spiritual action of 4 through 9. Meaning this fourth dimension that Bill's alluding to, God consciousness, is not about, you don't achieve it by sitting around at a bunch of meetings. See, the greatest illusion is that God's out here. All that illusion creates is doubt. And one who, if we live in doubt, we live in fear. And, we will not find peace. So take this home with you. And what if you went beyond belief and sought God within? And what if you're seeking God within, you experience this God within? And what if the tools to do that are sitting right in front of you? And what if by experiencing God, you know God? And what if by knowing God, you're set free? And I believe what would happen to you, you will live the life as the Buddha did, as Jesus did, as the Krishna did, as all the saints did. They never tried to paint a picture of what God looked like or convince God that God existed. They just said this: follow me, follow me. And that's exactly what Bill Wilson did when he wrote this book, to show others precisely how recovered is the main purpose of this book. Follow me. Until you take the action to seek the fourth dimension, there is no way to fully comprehend God. And do you see why it's a spiritual awakening? Do you see why it's a fourth dimension we never dreamed? I'm going to give you a quick preview of next week. Remember, Bill's sitting there in his bitter morals of self-pity. Near the end of a bleak November, I sat drinking in my kitchen. With a certain satisfaction, I reflected there was enough gin concealed about the house to carry me through the next day, the next night, the next day. My wife was at work. I wondered whether I dared hide a bottle of gin near the head of the bed. I would need it before daylight. My musing was interrupted by the telephone. The cheery voice of an old school friend asked if he might come over. And that's where we're going to start next week with what that is. And that's what we'll be at.